Hello and welcome to Auto Shenanigans. How the devil are you? Have you had a good week? My name is John. Thank you very much for joining me for another exciting episode of Secrets of the Motorway. For today's episode, I've come to Washington in the northeast of England. It's near Newcastle and it's where we find the 3.5 mile long A194M motorway. It was built alongside an extension to the A1M. Until this point, the A1M had only made it as far north as today's Junction 63, but it was extended up to Junction 66, opening in 1969. The A194M would open shortly after in 1970. Things would change in the early 1980s because somebody decided to reroute the A1. Until that point, the A1 ran right through the centre of Newcastle, but this was deemed as no longer suitable, so the A1 was rerouted along the length of the A194M through the Tyne Tunnel and on from there. This resulted in the A194M being renumbered to the A1M. Things would change in the early 1990s because somebody decided to reroute the A1. Until that point, the A1 ran through the Tyne Tunnel, but this was deemed as no longer suitable, and with a new bypass being built to the west of Newcastle, it was decided to make that the A1M. This resulted in the A194M renumbered to the A1M now being renumbered back to its original number of the A194M. So the A194M starts at the Burley Interchange and heads north to connect with the A184. As I said, it's around 3.5 miles long and features 2 junctions, although interestingly, junction numbers weren't added until 2013. Before then, it was anyone's guess. Junction 1 is known as the Havana Interchange and it's fairly unremarkable, but in 2010, a near £1 million project was carried out on the 2 bridges at the interchange. At around 40 years old, the bridges were in need of some new concrete, and what's interesting is the method they used to carry out the works. Rather than go at it with jackhammers and chisels, they used robotic hydro demolition. In essence, a very high pressure robotic water jet that can precisely destroy anything it comes into contact with. They used this process to remove the bits they were looking to replace, and in doing so, it made the job a whole lot quicker, and because the process is vibration free, there was no risk of damage to the surrounding structure. Junction 2, or the Follingsby Interchange, is also fairly unremarkable, but there were plans for this junction to be a bit grander and possibly a motorway to motorway interchange. We discussed in the A197M episode how Newcastle had a crazy road building scheme dreamt up in the 50s and 60s, and that plan extended as far down as the A194M. What we may have ended up with is a large 3-lane dual carriageway running from Junction 2 across the River Tyne on a new bridge before connecting up with another unbuilt motorway on the east side of Newcastle. I can't be 100% sure that this large dual carriageway would have been a motorway because it's not mentioned in any official documentation. However, given that the plan was to build several motorways around Newcastle, I think it's fairly likely that this would have been a proper motorway. Today we can see where space has been left alongside the A195 for it to be widened. With the possibility of 2 motorways meeting at the Follingsby Interchange, this would have made a lot of sense, but with the original plans being cancelled, the A195 no longer needed to be that big a road, so they didn't bother upgrading it. If we take a slight detour off the motorway at Junction 2 and head down Follingsby Lane, we find the site of the former Follingsby Colliery or mine. Follingsby Colliery opened in 1911 to replace the nearby but much older Wardley mine, which had been operational since 1855. Some years later, the Wardley mine would be reopened and the 2 mines merged together. The 2 mines were linked underground, and what was dug out at Wardley was transported via underground railway to the site at Follingsby, where it would be lifted to the surface for processing. The entire operation closed down in 1974, but it's possible the underground railway still exists. On the site today we find Wardley Biogas, who spent £17 million on an aerobic digestion plant. This basically takes your food waste and converts it to natural gas to be used in heating houses, etc. In June 2020, the Environmental Agency received several complaints about a foul odour being emitted from the site. Following an investigation, it was discovered that the company operating the plant had failed to maintain their odour management systems, and after failing to correct this, they were issued fines by the Environmental Agency. And it's funny because the same company were issued fines for similar reasons in 2019 at a site in Middlesbrough. The A194M comes to an end at a traffic light controlled roundabout, so you've got to wait for the traffic lights before you can exit the motorway. Whilst you wait, you might notice the brick-made bridge that you have to drive over before the motorway's end. Underneath lies an abandoned railway known as the Leamside line. It opened in 1838 and was still in use right up until the 1990s. However, passenger services ended in 1964. It was therefore used for freight in its later years, and where today we find some warehouses once stood a Freightliner freight depot, and it would have been underneath the A194M where the locomotives turned off the main line onto a branch line and into the depot. The depot would close in 1987 for the odd reason that somebody wanted to use the area for open cast mining, so the whole thing was demolished. As mentioned, the motorway comes to an end at a roundabout where it meets the A184, but surely surely it makes sense for the motorway to continue north to meet the A19. We could have built a flyover and everything. Apparently not, actually. The area between the A194M and the A19 is too heavily built up, so plans were never considered for a motorway continuation. Instead, road planners hope that the majority of traffic will head east along the A184 to connect with the A19. In any case, it doesn't seem like there are any plans for the A194M to continue further than this point. And there we are then, guys. That's all we've got time for this week. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you liked the video. If you did, there is of course a button specifically for that, and if you haven't subscribed already, please consider doing so. That'd be wicked sweet awesome. Enjoy the rest of your week, whatever it is you get up to. My name's John, you've been watching Auto Shenanigans, and I'll see you guys next time for another exciting episode of Secrets of the Motorway. Till then, take care, bye bye.